Um,
And we are live. Welcome back, everyone, to our last recap of the regular season for the NFL. Because it's Monday, it's a new episode of 305 Takes. We're glad to be here for you guys. We got a good episode for you. We're gonna be talking about our takeaways from Week 18 going into Week 1 of the NFL playoffs, aka Wild Card Weekend. We're gonna be talking about some of the matchups, almost all of them, and we're even talk about some coaching vacancies in the NFL because it is quote unquote Black Monday. We've had two head coaches fired within the last 24 hours, one defensive coach fired as well. So we're going to talk about some of those vacancies and which ones could be potentially opening up soon. Who knows? And yeah, we hope you guys enjoy the show. So now let's get to our biggest topic of the day, uh, Week 18 takeaways. And Miles, it was the last week of the regular season. It's over. It's done. We know who's in the playoffs. We know who's not. But yesterday we had some. I would say most of the games what we expected to happen happened, except for like maybe two of them.
yeah, I agree with you, and it was a weird week 18, I would say, and I think that's kind of the thoughts that I've been having as we're starting to get prepared for the podcast because on the Saturday games, obviously Chiefs took care of business, wasn't really a big surprise there, and then Saturday night I was why, like, why are the Jaguars such favorites? Like we still realize that it is like the Jacksonville Jaguars after all. And I actually thought Josh Dobbs and the Titans played, I mean, as well as you could really hope for. And I'm still kind of perplexed on how that pass was ruled a fumble. I mean, it looked like he pushed the ball
Forward,
forward with
yeah.
his fingers. I mean, I just think that 9 out of 10 times that's being called an incomplete pass. I don't know.
I think
It
it
was a
depends on the quarterback. If it's the quarterback, they'll get the call.
Yeah, that one was very suspicious to me. And then yesterday, I was at the Dolphins Jets game, and I was just telling you before we started recording that was probably the most boring football game I could have ever imagined. And the fact that I was at the game in the stands, I was like, all right, this was a decision to come to Skylar Thompson versus Joe Flacco, but obviously very exciting once the Dolphins went ahead and clinched the victory, and then they put on the rest of the Bills Patriots game on the big screen. So it was fun, to celebrate a Dolphins victory and the fact that they were able to clinch a playoff berth. But then we went into the late games, and Baker Mayfield and the Seahawks really tried to win that game. And it seemed like the NFL, for as much as we talk about, it's unpredictable. You can't really, you know, plan who's going to win. It seemed like the NFL did everything in their power to try to get Aaron Rodgers into the playoffs with some of the calls that were being made in that LA Seattle game, and then at the late game. I mean, that Detroit Green Bay game had some very, very, very questionable officiating, I would say, in it to say the least. But then Rodgers goes ahead and steals the spotlight again with that long walk towards the tunnel with Randall Cobb and telling Jamison Williams he's got to hold on to this jersey, which I was surprised that the broadcast immediately was like, I wonder why he has to keep this jersey. But I mean, I guess we could start there. Like, so that's it for Rodgers. I don't see how that can really be a thing.
I think it might be it for him in Green Bay, if anything, because I'm pretty sure Aaron Rodgers knows. Okay, the Raiders. There's a very good chance Carr is not going to be there. Could the Raiders potentially sneak in and buy Rodgers, and next thing you know, he's back with Devontae Adams, and then he has Darren Waller. The only thing he won't have a defense. It generally will almost be like the 2011 Packers, all offense, no defense. So it's like, okay, you can score, but can you stop teams from scoring? So I think that might be in the back of his head, or it might just be Rodgers doing that on purpose, so that way the media doesn't focus on him losing, which could be the topic, but I do want to give more credit to the Detroit Lions because, bro, they just wanted it more. They wanted it. Even though they were out of playoff contention, we said on Friday, there's a very good chance they want to play spoiler and be the reason why Aaron Rodgers is not in the playoffs. And they did. They played a very good game. The defense played much, much better than I anticipated them on playing. And the offense was shaky at times, but then they really got they got it rolling. So I do want to give them a lot of credit, and credit to Dan Campbell because his team fights. They fight to the very end, and he's made a fan out of me in terms of the head coach. I think he well deserves this job. And now they even have the Rams pick going into the draft. That's going to be a top 5 pick plus their pick. So I really believe they can build something strong. The only thing now I would question, are they going to stick with Jared Goff if a quarterback does become available to them in the offseason or in the draft?
I mean, I don't know if another team really made out better than the Lions yesterday because not only do the Rams lose, they clinched the sixth pick in the draft from that trade with Matthew Stafford. So they'll be getting the sixth pick just from LA. And then, not only do they get to eliminate the Packers, but they also finish with over 500 record with a team that at some points in the season we were like, what the heck are they doing? Like, is this Dan Campbell stuff just for play? Like, what is going on? And they righted the ship. They got their season back. I mean, Goff, I don't think you can really say too much about Goff. Like, he's proven that at the very, very minimum, he's an NFL starting quarterback,
Yeah.
regardless of what you wanted to say with McVay before, how the offense helped him. But right now you could say he's a solid NFL starting quarterback. And, there were questions going into this season about like what they were going to do with him. Is this the year that they go ahead and draft a quarterback? And I don't think necessarily that they need to. And, when you look at them for the future, they're bringing back Jamison Williams for a full year healthy. They're going to have the sixth pick in the draft on top of their own pick. So there's, a real future to be made there in Detroit. So that's got to be an amazing feeling, not only for that organization, everybody involved, but when you look at the NFC North, like the Bears somehow ended up with the first pick. We'll talk about the Texans and Lovie Smith in a little bit later during the podcast, but the Bears ended up with the number 1 pick. They have Justin Fields. We'll see what they end up doing if they target a quarterback, maybe trade back, try to get some more draft capital, and then you look at the Lions. We just talked about them finishing 9-8, beat the Packers twice in one season, and then 3 times in a row if you consider the last time that they played last year. And the Vikings are coming off 12 wins with a rookie head coach. Like, if I'm Rodgers, I'm looking at it like it might be time to jump ship. But I mean, I just is he the same quarterback that we think he is? Like, and I think it's unfair because obviously Brady's, I mean, at 45, like it hasn't been, there's been a slight drop off, I would say, this season. And I think this season's probably the first one where you can be like, all right, he's not as good as he was even last year, or, when you consider how he's played throughout his career. I mean, Rodgers is 39. He turns 40, I believe, in March. So, like, 40 is like a really old age for NFL quarterbacks. Like, this might just be the natural decline. And, like, if I'm Rodgers, I'm looking at it and I'm like, if I'm Rodgers, the one thing I'm trying to avoid is becoming Russell Wilson, where the
Yeah.
drop off is just like that, where it's one you change teams, and now the question is, did this franchise make a huge mistake by acquiring you?
That is true. And the Packers are probably questioning that contract extension they signed him to last offseason. Because
Yeah,
that's what it was. It was
if he agrees to play for the Packers next year, no trade or anything, he has 58.3 million guaranteed.
so I'm it's kind of hard for me to say Aaron walks out from that like $60 million.
That's
And so
crazy.
I'm like, man, if I'm here, I'm pretty sure I'm coming back to play at least one more season. But it
And
also
I'm
could
like,
be,
I'm just kind of over it at this point. Like, he had to do
yeah,
the whole thing where he finds Randall Cobb and then they walk into the locker
yeah.
room,
I just feel
joined
like with
arms.
Aaron, I think he knows how to generally get the topic off of them losing and mainly say, all right, it might just be my retirement. So that way they're not
Make it all
talking.
about me.
Yeah. All
Even
about
after they
you.
draft Jordan Love, I've been considering retirement. I've been considering,
Yeah.
asking for a trade. And then what does Jordan Love do? So he's just got to wait
At
for
this
what
point,
Rodgers'
I asked for
decision
a trade
does.
if I'm Jordan Love.
Well, the thing is it's if you can't ask for a trade too early, because if Rodgers ends up going to another team, like, you're leaving an organization that'll probably just hand you the starting job because they invested a first round pick in you and
Yeah.
you've been in that system. So that's the thing. If I'm Love, I'm like, damn, I gotta wait another season to figure out what this guy in front of me is going to do before I can ask for my own trade or go into the offseason, preparing myself to be a starting quarterback in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean it's a definitely sticky situation for Packers because I generally don't know what for Aaron. I feel like Aaron should come back one because he did sign a contract to opt to play, and the young receivers they have been playing better throughout the games. Christian Watson's played much better compared to when he did the first half of the season. Romeo Dobbs has been getting more under his belt, and they still have a solid defense. It could be better because this year they didn't play
It
up to the
should be better. But yeah, they,
yeah,
they definitely have talent. It's not like a team that
yeah.
doesn't have talent on defense.
They have talent. To me, if they could fix a little bit of their offensive line, I feel like that would help out a lot more just because their line is not the best in my eyes. Because I like Tunyon. Aaron Jones is good. I just think he has a fumbling problem. AJ Dillon is a good back. And then wide receivers, if you could get like one more piece in terms of your receiving core, they should be a very competitive team because Aaron still has the arm talent to do whatever he wants. So that part, I feel like that is there, but that I don't know with the Packers because, like you said, the Bears they have the number one pick. They could trade it, get a lot of draft capital back, or they could maybe even get some pieces for that first overall pick and actually build a team better. That could be the Bears have a lot of options with that first overall pick. They could
Or even
probably,
a crazy option, draft young and trade Fields for
yeah,
draft
and
capital.
that is one. They could probably draft. They could draft young, and next thing you know, who knows if they trade Fields to a team that has a good offensive line, and they're like, give us one offensive lineman and like a third, and we'll give you Justin Fields. And they're like,
Oh,
okay,
dude, if you only have to give up a O lineman and a third for Fields, I'd do that right now. Even as a Dolphins fan, I'd do that right now.
yeah. I just think because if they do draft Bryce Young, the teams are going to be like, okay, we're not going to give you that much because now you have two quarterbacks. You obviously you'll trade him to the highest bidder, but everyone
But two
knows,
first-round quarterbacks.
yeah. So
So, I mean, I feel
it,
like you should at least get a first back if you're doing
yeah.
that.
And right now, we'll have to see. I mean, depending on how the draft goes, I this might even hold some teams from even pursuing a quarterback because I know the Jets, they say they're in on Carr, Jimmy G, and Lamar. If Justin Fields is in the mix, you might want to even go after him. So that could definitely be up in the air. But I would say from week 18, the takeaway, bro, we're talking about it more and more every day now. Bro, the Cowboys, they just find some way to collapse. And it wasn't like a minor collapse. This was major. You lost to
And
Sam Howell.
they lost to Sam Howell and a Commanders team that legit had nothing to play for.
Nothing.
Had
And
nothing to play for,
that,
and
oh my God, bro. Those two passes, one should have been a pick six, dropped. The Nets pass, he goes to the exact same thing, and it's a pick six. And I'm just like, bro, how are you playing this bad? Tony Pollard didn't do anything. Zeke didn't do anything. CeeDee Lamb quit. He quit in that game.
yeah, and Dak for the game, he goes 14 of 37 for 128 yards, one touchdown, one interception. Like
Bro, he was so bad. So
that's
bad.
that's terrible. And like, you know, all right, you can say the Commanders had nothing to play for, and the Cowboys had an outside shot of maybe getting the one seed, maybe winning the division. But regardless of all that, I think the most important thing they were looking for was to try to build some type of momentum
And they
going
couldn't.
into going into the playoffs. And I mean, if you look at their schedule, like the last couple of weeks going into the playoffs, they eke out a win against the Texans at home, which I mean, you can say the Texans were fighting hard down the stretch, but I mean, if you're realistic about making
They're
a
not a
run in
good
the
team.
playoffs, you're not struggling to beat a Texans team and down majority of that game. The next week is the epic collapse at Jacksonville against the Jaguars, where they lose 40-34. The week after that, they play Christmas Eve against the Eagles at home with no Jalen Hurts and Gardner Minshew. I mean, I think he did well against their defense. I don't think he was maybe
They
good
barely
or
beat a
great or
backup
anything.
who
Yeah,
looked terrible against the
and
Saints.
he had a shot to win the game on the final drive. So there's that. That's a victory. And then they have that weird Thursday night game against Tennessee, where Tennessee basically rested their entire team because nothing mattered until their Week 18 game, and they
It was
won
close. It was
27
a close game.
13 against Josh Dobbs in his first career NFL start, and then you only score 6 points and lose by 20 to the Commanders on the final week of the season. That's insane. And this is a Commanders team that just lost to the Cleveland Browns.
Yep. And
And
n-
go ahead.
Cle- the Commanders should have scored more. There was a lot of drop passes.
And a turnover in the end zone. So like there was a lot of opportunities for them to put up even more points. So I mean, I told you right before we started recording, I was on the phone with one of my boys earlier in the day. I'm going in on Bucks money line. We'll talk about playoff matchups in a little bit, but I just you're telling me Brady's at home facing a team that I have no confidence in, and it's the Dallas Cowboys. Like it would be the most perfect thing in the world if the Cowboys lose that wild card matchup
It's
against the Bucks this weekend. But I think I don't even think that game's Monday, right? That's
Yeah,
the Monday
Monday
night
night.
game.
Monday
Yeah,
night.
so
It's gonna be prime time. Everyone's gonna be watching. That's the only game on, and it's kind of like the perfect stage because the Cowboys, probably the most we could say disliked team in all of America, facing probably the most disliked player that's ever played in the NFL, and Tom Brady, and everyone's rooting for Tom Brady to beat the Cowboys. That's probably the craziest part because I genuinely give the Bucks a legitimate shot. I give them a legitimate shot, but we'll talk about that in a while. And but man, I will say my last takeaway in Week 18. There has to be like some teams. They have a bright future. Some teams have a very very bright future.
who I mean, I think Pittsburgh's really set up going into the future. I mean, Mike Tomlin getting this team to 9 wins
That's
is just
impressive
incredible. And him being 15 plus years in the NFL and not having a losing season is just insane. And I think, I mean, it might not be sexy to talk about, but we have to talk about him. I mean, for our generation, I think he's probably number two behind
Yeah,
Belichick.
the
And
best
he
coach
would probably be
behind
number
Belichick.
one in most generations if it wasn't for Belichick. Like he doesn't have necessarily like the sustained playoff success. I mean, they've won games, been bounced out. He's won a Super Bowl before, but it's not like he's consistent. It's not like he's Belichick and Brady, where it was consistent every year, at least AFC Championship or Super Bowl appearance. But I think the Steelers have a bright future, and especially when you consider that Pickett and George Pickens were rookies this year, and you saw that stat about Deontay Johnson. He set the record for most receptions in a season without scoring a touchdown. I believe it was 84 catches on
Yeah,
the season and
that's
didn't have a touchdown. So, I mean, I think they still need pieces on the offensive line, but they definitely have talent to build around moving forward. If you look offensively, I still like Najee. He hasn't this year. I think was a step back, but I also he just gets hit at the line of scrimmage every time. So it's hard for a running back to consistently make big plays when that's happening. I love Pickens. They got the 32nd pick in the draft
for
for trading
trading
Clay.
Cleveland.
Yeah, for trading Claypool. Deontay, I think is more of like, what do you like out of an NFL receiver? Because he'll make the big plays, but he'll also have just like the simple routine drops.
Yeah,
And I like Fryermuth, so that's just offensively, without even mentioning Pickett. Defensively, TJ Watt was banged up this year. If you get a full season out of
they're
TJ
still
Watt, we know
great
he can be,
defensively.
yeah, he can be Defensive Player of the Year. Minka is always going to be a stud for them. So I think this is a team that the only thing that is concerning for them, if I'm looking big picture, is all right, we have Cincinnati. We know they're going to be a problem for the rest of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase's time together. Like that's just going to be a problem that you're going to have to deal with. And to the Steelers' credit, they beat them once this year. So like you can't say that it's like this giant mismatch. Between the two teams, or like that there's this huge difference between talent. And then Baltimore, we'll talk about them as we move on to the next segment. But Baltimore might be a completely different franchise in a couple months, depending on what moves they make this offseason. And then, I mean, it could have gone any worse for Cleveland this year. They could have
It,
just have gone any worse. I mean,
it
Jadeveon Clowney
didn't.
literally quit the team before this last game.
Yeah, it didn't look good, but I also feel like all right, Deshaun hasn't played football in 2 years, so he was going to be rusty. He did play better as once the season went on. It didn't get progressively better; it went slowly better. So I do think next year Cleveland will have more of a fight in the division. Though I would say a team that I would like to, I think, could make a move this offseason. Well, I think this is a move. If a team has a young quarterback and they have cap space, I would try to call Cincinnati and ask what is the price for T. Higgins. Because T. Higgins He's in line to get paid. Joe Burrow is in line to get paid, and then next year, Jamar Chase will be in line to get paid.
Mhm.
So I'm like, if I'm Cincinnati, okay, one of them can't get paid. Two of them will, and most likely, like you said, it will be Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. So I would call and ask, hey, what's the price for T. Higgins? Because I'm willing to give T. Higgins his money. And I'm willing to give the draft compensation because I think he's a one. I think he's a one, and he could help any young quarterback.
Yeah, definitely. And another name, he's a little bit older though, so you would have to be a team that thinks that they're just a piece away from competing. But DeAndre Hopkins, depending on what happens in
With
Arizona, we
Arizona.
already know Kyler's going to be out for at least the start of next season, and they made the news about Cliff and replacing their GM as well, so they'll be an organization to keep an eye out for as well. But another team that I think has a pretty bright future, I just don't know necessarily what the next step for them is. Man, I kind of like this Falcons team.
They do. I like their running game, offensive line. I feel like just needs like maybe one more piece. That's just my personal thing. Quarterback, obviously, they need to fix.
Yeah,
They need
that's
to
the
fix
thing.
the
But
quarterback.
I mean, the pass catchers, I thought London was really good this year. Drake
He
London was
was
good, their
good.
first round pick. I mean, Pitts, he just hasn't put up the stats we thought he was going to put up, but you can't say that he's not an unbelievable talent and a positive asset to have on your team. So
And
I,
it's like you
I
said,
do
his quarterback play does not help him at all.
I do like the foundation that they have, and I honestly I was trying to think of it out of all the young coaches that have been hired. I would say last year or this year, I would say Dayball's first, and like the guy I can see like, all right, he has actually made an impact on this team, and like you can see how they respond. And number two, I think, is Arthur Smith.
Yeah.
When
I
you
would
when
say
you
he's
see
done
him,
a solid job. In terms of roster building, I feel like it's good. The only move I question was probably Calvin Ridley because I love that move for the Jaguars and he'll play for them next year. But no doubt that one's good. I think Atlanta's solid. The only thing defense, I still think they do have a lot to work with there. But I was going to go to their division rival. I love what the Panthers are showing me. I think
you
the
think I
I
just think they're just going to be in such quarterback oblivion for a couple of years.
That's the thing. To me, if they
Because
get the
Darnold is
quarterback,
not a starting
that's
quarterback.
when I know they'll be set.
Because Darnold is not a starting quarterback.
He's
Like
he's not.
watching him yesterday, and I get that the Saints were competitive all year on defense, but watching him yesterday, you were just
It
like,
wasn't great.
there's nothing left to answer. Like no one needs to try this again. Like it
Who
is
knows?
over
Maybe
for
they
him.
might be in play for Justin Fields.
They could be in play for Fields. I wouldn't be surprised if they're just in play for trading up for that first overall pick. Um,
The
Outside of
Colts
Fields,
too.
there's obviously there's Levis coming out of Kentucky. There's C.J. Stroud. A lot of people like the Anthony Richardson kid out of Florida, so they'll have options to go to. I just I do think they have some pieces. I just where they are roster wise, I think they just need a veteran quarterback. I don't think necessarily you can put a rookie in there and think like, all right, this is our missing piece because rookies are going to go through their struggles. But both those teams, when you consider it, it's about the division too, because the NFC South. I mean, we've talked about it pretty much every podcast, like just how terrible it was this year, and you have the Buccaneers going ahead and clinching the division, but we'll see what happens with Brady. It's already an older roster as it is outside of Brady, so we'll see what happens there. And then depending on what you think about Atlanta or Carolina, I think that those are your two teams to pick for the
Yeah.
future of that division because the reports seem that New Orleans is going to bring back Dennis Allen, which I mean, good for them. I'm probably going to bet they're under again going into next season because I just think Dennis Allen is not the best coach. But they did fight. They did fight. They have some pieces on offense. It's just
And he's
again,
got that defense playing well. Like
yeah,
they've
the
played
defense was definitely
really
playing well.
and considering all the pieces they lost over the past years because of their whole cap situation
Yeah, I
under
mean, they
Sean
traded one of the
Payton
best safeties in the NFL and Chauncey Gardner Johnson this offseason,
and
right before the
Marcus
season
Williams.
started. Yeah, Marcus Williams as well. So they've definitely lost some pieces, but I think that the talent is still there. And when you look at them on the season, I mean, they played San Francisco, probably one of the probably best out of most of the teams that played them down the stretch.
Yeah. So I mean, it's definitely there. There are teams that are on the rise, and we'll see because in the NFL offseason, that's when teams make those moves to say, all right, we're going in, we're going all in. This is our guy. This is our team. We love what we see here, and we're gonna fight. So we'll definitely see. But we are going to cut this segment a little short and give a quick shout out to our presenting sponsor, E2G Sports, who has helped transition 305 takes from audio to video. And if it wasn't for E2G Sports, we wouldn't be able to be broadcasting our podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and various other platforms. If you guys want to check out some more news on sports around NFL, NBA, MLB, check out their website, e2gsports.com, or their YouTube channel, E2G Sports, where you can look at other various podcasts outside of us. If you are a big Boston Celtics fan, Patriots fan, Red Sox fan, or any fan of the Northeast, they are definitely one there because this company is affiliated with a lot of the Northeast teams, especially Boston. So that is something, and I hope all of our coworkers are doing good today because a lot of them are Patriots fans and they did not make the playoffs. And now, because of that, Myles' Miami Dolphins are in the playoffs. So I think we got to talk some playoff matchups because we'll talk more about them in depth on our Friday show. But just like a quick overview, I'll just say the question: do we like the matchups?
Well, let's go through them first. So let's go through them by day. So on Saturday, we start off. We got
Seahawks, 49ers.
Seahawks going to the 49ers. That'll be the 4:30 game on Fox. And then Saturday night, we have the Chargers versus the Jaguars. And when we look at these teams, obviously the first game, I think if you're making content for a living in North America and you pick the Seattle Seahawks, please just introduce me to you because I can't think of, I really can't think of a reason or a rationale that's your pick because like I'm for it. Like you need to make content like and not every favorite is going to win, but there's simply no way that the 49ers lose this. But I do think it's an interesting, very, very interesting discussion to have as we look at this game. And let's assume that the 49ers win. But Brock Purdy is 6-0 going into this matchup. And I think it might not be complete consensus, but damn near complete consensus is that the San Francisco 49ers have the most complete roster in the NFL, regardless of in the playoffs or not, just the most complete roster in the NFL. But for them to go to the Super Bowl, that means Brock Purdy is going to have to be a perfect 10-0.
Yeah, because he'll have to win this game, the divisional game, and the NFC Championship game. So essentially, he'll have to be 9-0 just to get to the Super Bowl. For
9-0 to get to the Super Bowl, and then 10-0 for them to win it. So, do we think Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy is gonna go 10-0, or at least 9 to get to the Super Bowl?
I'm not going to give my answer because I do want to wait for our Super Bowl prediction, which will be on Friday's show, because we will give essentially our kind of like almost playoff predictions once we give them our updated Super Bowl picks. But if anyone remembers my prediction at the beginning, you'll see what I think. But I will say, I do think Seattle can keep it close because this is the third time they're playing each other. So they know each other well, and they play each other every year twice. So they do know, okay, these are their weaknesses, these are their strengths. And at least for Seattle, the big change between Geno and Russ is in their favor because it's like, all right, Seattle has only shown so much to the 49ers, but also I could say vice versa with Brock Purdy. They've only seen X amount from Brock Purdy and the 49ers offense. And now the 49ers offense got Debo, so I do think that is definitely a game changer. I think Debo can very much swing the tide in terms of who they want to pick. But yeah, I do have to agree. The 49ers are going to be my pick on that one. And then
Isn't it funny? Do you know the teams that the Niners lost to this year?
The Chiefs, the Commanders. No, they didn't lose to the Commanders.
The Chiefs are the only playoff team they lost to.
Yeah, dang. Who else?
I'll tell you the other three because it's insane when you consider that we just said this is the best roster in football, and these
Atlanta beat them.
Week 1 at Chicago in that rainstorm.
That's right, with Trey Lance in that rain game. Yep.
I don't even remember. I must have blocked this out. Week 3, they lost at Denver, 11-10.
Jesus.
Like I must have blocked that out. Like I have no recollection of that game. But they lost 11-10 at Denver. And then they went back-to-back losses. Week 6 at Atlanta, and then week 7 at home against Kansas City, where Kansas City kind of just went crazy on them offensively.
They
lost 11-10. to the Denver
Wow.
Broncos. Let's look at the box score from that game.
Credit to
Jimmy
you, Russell
Garoppolo,
Wilson. Credit to you.
18 of 29 for 211 in that game. Freaking Russell Wilson, 20 of 33 for 184, no touchdowns, no interceptions.
Oh,
Jeff Wilson Jr., San Francisco 49er at the time, 12 carries, 75 yards.
that's not bad.
I don't even understand what happened in this game. Debo and Brandon Ayuk, 8 targets each. Ayuk finishes 3 receptions, 39 yards and a touchdown. Debo goes for 5 receptions, 73 yards. I don't remember this. Cortland Sutton, 8 receptions, 97 yards. I mean, you could honestly tell me I'm going to make up a box score and tell me that if this is real or
That
not.
was a
But
game.
that honestly just blew my mind. So this is the dilemma. So for as good as a story as Seattle has been, I just don't think that they can do anything with the 49ers.
Yeah, it's tough.
We've seen Seattle be torched defensively on the ground, whether it's
And
Josh
Tyreek
Jacobs
Woolen just got hurt.
and
So,
and Tyreek Woolen got hurt. Jordan Brooks is already lost for their season, their best linebacker. So I just feel like San Francisco, even if they don't play that well, they'll be able to find success
yeah,
on the ground.
I,
So like it might not be the highest scoring game, but I just
yeah,
don't think that the Seahawks can really even hang close with them.
yeah. That's why I do say this, since it is the third time they are playing each other. I do think the score will be closer than what people think. I do believe it will be a one-score game. So if you're not a fan but you want to take a chance at the spread, go ahead. Seattle with the 10. I think that is.
10.
I
Yeah.
think it's a very, very solid bet for you to take, because we do have to give Seattle credit. They made the playoffs and they were competitive in
Yeah,
a
but
lot
they
of
had to
games.
get to overtime to beat Baker.
I,
That's the thing that's really messing with my brain, dog. They had to get to
yeah.
overtime to beat
But
Baker.
after what we said, that Denver beat San Francisco, that kind of blows my mind.
Yeah, anything could happen in the NFL, obviously,
So
but
we do have that. But then I want to go to now the Saturday night game between the Chargers and the Jaguars. I feel like that is a deadlock. Like, I don't know who to pick, because
and Vegas agrees with you. Vegas has this game straight up pick 'em.
yeah,
No
like,
favorite, straight up pick 'em. Minus 110 either side.
so I mean, I like the Chargers, but I don't like how Mike Williams got injured yesterday. So
I
that
mean,
does
that had
kind
to
of,
be the dumbest football game
yeah.
of the entire week 18. Like, what was Brandon Staley doing? Like
I
that game meant
understand you want to
absolutely
get
nothing to them.
momentum going into the playoffs, but
But I
I don't
mean,
mind
is
if
it
you're playing
momentum
your
when you
starters
lose
for a
Mike Williams?
series. Yeah. If
And
you
like,
play,
okay, like I get trying to get momentum, but like,
yeah,
why not just put Mike Williams and Keenan Allen in bubble wrap for this week?
yeah,
But because these are guys that have Mike Williams has battled injuries his entire career. Keenan Allen, started his career
somewhat.
really battling injuries and then he got healthy. But then this year he got banged up. So I'm like, and me and you have made the point, and I think a lot of people nationally have made the point. This team is completely different when they have both of those guys out there. Like completely different. Like it's two different teams. So I don't understand why the whole philosophy was protect these guys at all costs. And I mean, the video of Williams having to take the cart because of the back
It's
injury
not
to
a
the
good look.
locker room, and then him getting off that cart and just trying to walk the couple of feet into the locker room looks super painful. So
Yeah,
I
it
would
might
put
be a
his
game time decision.
yeah, I
Very
would
much
put
so.
his availability for this game in serious question. But I mean, well, first off, let's shout out to the Jags. The
They
Jags,
made
the
it.
Bucks, and the Dolphins all made the playoffs for the
All Florida
first time
teams.
since 1997, a year before I was born.
Guys,
So
that's
shout out to the Florida team. Me and you can call me an angel, the prognosticator on that, because we drafted a whole entire fantasy football team based off straight Florida players,
yeah.
and all three of them representing the state in the NFL playoffs. But let's get back to our regular schedule programming for
I,
this game. I mean, I just thought Herbert was the golden child, bro. That's my thing. If Herbert
yeah.
is as good as everybody has told me he wins this game.
Yeah, no, they should win this game, because don't get me wrong, I like the Jags. I feel like they are a solid team. I just feel they could be much better, because we spoke about it in the offseason. We did not like the signing for Christian Kirk. No, he's played well. I just don't think he's worth the 21 million that he signed for a year, because 84 years for 84, I'm not a fan of that. I personally wouldn't give that to him, because I just don't think he's a one. I really don't. If it was a number one receiver, cool. I have no problem with that because teams do that all the time. They go pay the money to the receiver, but you're telling me there's a $4 million difference between AJ Brown and Christian Kirk? No, there is a much bigger difference. That's just my thought on it. I do think the best signing they had all offseason was Evan Ingram. 1 year for $10 million. I thought that was a steal of a deal. And Evan
Yeah,
Ingram
he's
might have
been
just played
balling.
his way into a long payday. Well, I would say a big payday for depending on who wants to sign him. But I feel like they have a solid shot at this game. The what helps them is that this game is in Jacksonville, so they do have home field advantage on their side. And after seeing what they did against the Titans, that crowd's going to be there. They're going to be into it. And now
Yeah, but were we impressed with their win over the Titans?
it
I
wasn't the
felt
best
like
win.
Lawrence looked super shaky.
Yeah,
I felt like
it
Lawrence
was
looked
like a
super
playoff
shaky. There was a
atmosphere for the first time in his career.
Yeah,
So
I thought he looked super shaky. So he finishes against Tennessee. He finishes 20 for 32, 212 yards, and one touchdown with a quarterback rating of 92. So, I mean, I would say that's like a pretty average game, but I just, I don't know. Jacksonville in the playoffs is such a weird sight. And I know the last time that they were in the playoffs, they obviously went on that magical run with a really talented roster with Jalen Ramsey and, losing to Tampa, or not to Tampa Bay, but to Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. But I just feel like, I feel like they got super lucky when you look at the division they played in, because the Colts fell all types of apart. The Texans were wanted to be one of the worst teams in football all year, and then the Titans were 7-2, and then just said we're not interested in winning football games anymore. And I thought the Titans played them very very well on Saturday or Saturday night for the division, but I think it's a very fun matchup in terms of the fact that you get Herbert versus Lawrence, and like they're probably like, not in terms of like how they play, but in just physical look, they're probably the two most unique quarterbacks that we have.
yeah, one of them was arguably the one of the top five college quarterback prospects we ever had coming out of the NFL, coming
100%.
out of college with Trevor Lawrence, because his stock as like the Sherlock number one pick was like set in stone. And then you have Herbert, who was at one point projected to be the first pick in the draft, but then it kind of eased away with Tua coming onto the scene and then Joe Burrow coming onto the scene. So it was like, all right, Herbert's there, but these two are also here. So it's also your pick of the choice. So there is that. But I like this game. I feel like the teams are somewhat evenly matched. But like you said, if Justin Herbert wants to prove he's that guy, he has to win this game. He
Yeah.
has to win this game because on paper, the Chargers are much more talented than the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are much more talented. The good thing for the Chargers, they are getting healthy at the right time. The only thing, did they have enough like period to get their footing back in before the playoffs? Because it's one thing to show up 2 weeks before the playoffs and then show up right at a playoff game
Yeah.
as your first game back. So it definitely will be there. But I am excited for that matchup because I do think on Saturday the best matchup is that Chargers Jaguars game.
Yeah. Easily.
And no, we're gonna try to watch them. But also on Sunday, we got Myles is probably, I'm gonna say, like for like the first 3 hours, I'm not gonna text Myles just because I know I'm like, all right, I don't want to say anything. I'm not gonna mention anything. I'll just let Myles be in his cocoon, his space,
I
whatever.
mean, it's all right because I have no expectations for my favorite team, the Miami Dolphins, against the Buffalo Bills. Like, I don't think that there's. I know that fans are obviously going to want him to play because they think that gives them the best chance. But honestly, I just believe it's kind of reckless for Tua to even play in this game. Like,
I
not
think
only is this the second confirmed concussion, but we all believe that he suffered another one in that Bills game where he was able to finish the game. And honestly, I think the scariest part about this one is that he got that concussion and then the second half played terribly, and he said that there was moments where he just flat out didn't remember stuff. And not only was he not cleared to even be on the field, this week to practice, which is part of the 5-step concussion protocol process, but I saw a tweet from Barry Jackson that said that doctors have advised McDaniel and the staff to not bring anything to Tua that might cause stress because they just don't know how his brain is going to react. Like they want him to be completely um, completely like stress free. But I mean, 2 hours ago, ESPN Adam Schefter said he thinks Miami is hoping Tua will be able to start against the Bills, and I mean, I don't think it's the best idea. And
It's not.
so here's the exact tweet from Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald. Tua had memory issues and an inability to recall things after Green Bay concussion. Doctors are taking this very seriously to the point that they told the coaching staff that they should not discuss in any capital any topics that could cause him stress, such as when he might play again. So I get it that the organization obviously wants their first round pick and the guy they invested all of this into to be in this playoff matchup, but for me personally, I think it's just too reckless. And for a game where I really don't think we have a shot, and I get that the best shot might be for, or I don't even, not even might be, the best shot for them to win this game is with Tua playing, with Tua active and being their starting quarterback. But I personally don't think that they really have a shot even with Tua. And I just think it would be extremely, extremely reckless.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be. It wouldn't be the best decision for Tua because, like how you said, he suffered his second concussion of the season. Now he's in protocol for the second time, and it is best to keep him away from the game just for the simple fact not because he won't not that he will give your team a better chance. It's just his health is more important than a football game because we've talked about it offline and even a couple of times on the pod. We've seen guys retire because of concussions. And as someone who watches football, I don't want that to happen to Tua. I want him to try to attempt to play it as long as he can. But if his health is on the line, I would tell him, bro, it's time to sit it down. So I I do think if Tua didn't suffer any of those concussions and he was currently playing at the moment, I would give the Dolphins a better chance at winning this game just for the simple fact of their last matchup that they played in Buffalo, where all the signs before the game kind of pointed Buffalo is going to run away with this game. Miami's going to be way out of their comfort zone. It's going to be a dogfight for them just to probably even put up 10 points. Whereas they lost by a field goal in the end, where they were much more competitive. Obviously, the weather conditions didn't turn out to what the extremes that everyone projected it to be. So I do like that for the Dolphins. It's just now, also, it will be a different animal because it's the playoffs now. Now there's a lot more at stake. Now you don't have another week of practice. If you lose this game, there's no more practice until minicamp or OTAs,
Yeah.
whether they choose to go or not. So it's, I think it would be, if for the Dolphins, a lot of them for the first time players, it's going to be like new to them. But for the veterans like Tyreek Hill, Teron Armstead, some of the other players that they brought in, I believe they have to take charge and say, hey, this is what you need to expect in the playoffs, and we need to bring our A game. One
Yeah.
mistake can be the difference of winning by a field goal and losing by a field goal.
Yeah, and especially when you consider it's the same situation we just talked about with the Seahawks and the Cardinals. I think the familiarity of being able to play a team for the third time in one season is definitely an advantage, but it's an advantage for both teams. So, it's not like Buffalo's going to be like, "Oh, we don't know what Miami's going to run," and the same should apply for Dolphins. We know exactly what's going to happen with Josh Allen, but I mean, it was just such a positive feeling the last time we played Buffalo at Buffalo, where we were able to move the ball, even considering this
The running
the
game was
conditions.
present.
The running game was present, and we got the reports today that Raheem Mostert broke his thumb. So I do think he'll be able to play. We'll see how effective he is. He'll probably have the club on his hands, so that probably takes him out as a pass catching threat, or at least limits his role that he can provide in the passing game. But I mean, obviously, I want to beat Buffalo. For me, I think this is the AFC version of Seahawks versus 49ers because there's no way.
It's
I just
tough.
can't. I
I mean,
can't see it. I can't see it unless Tyreek and Jalen just go absolutely crazy and they get some type of turnover problem. added Josh Allen and can be able to just limit the offense. But I mean, Xavier looked a little bit rough again yesterday, and now
Yeah,
it's
he
Stephon
didn't look
Diggs.
the best.
Yeah.
I would say for the Dolphins, right place, wrong time. That's how I would say it. You're in the right place. You're in the playoffs. It's probably just the wrong time because you're dealing with the issues with your quarterback and the way how the team has looked the last like 4 to 5 weeks. It hasn't been the best.
Oh,
So that's where I
100%.
say right
It'd be
place, wrong
sweet. It'd be
time.
sweet if we could have, righted the ship a little bit earlier and gotten Jacksonville. Then we're talking about a whole completely different aspect, a whole different animal going into that
Exactly.
matchup.
Yep. So there's definitely a lot on that, but it is a solid game. And then we also have 4:30, another rematch this year. If anyone doesn't know, all these games are rematches from this year. The Jags played the Chargers, the Seahawks and 49ers. They play in the same division, so they automatically play each other. Buffalo and Miami play each other, and now it's official. And we talked about it for weeks. The Giants are playing the Vikings again, and it took a 61-yard field goal to beat the Giants.
The
So
first
now
one,
the
right?
Giants,
Yeah.
they should feel confident going into this game because the last 2 weeks, including yesterday, the Vikings have they didn't look good. They are prone to mistakes. And Kirk Cousins, I hate to say this in prime time, he just has shown me when the spotlight is on him, he just hasn't shown up. And I want him to show up because I feel like he has a very good team around him. And I believe a lot of guys on that team are very deserving of a chance to go play in the Super Bowl, like a Daniil Hunter, a Patrick Peterson, Justin Jefferson, I feel like is good. Adam Thielen has paid his dues as a player to
Dalvin
from
too.
Dalvin Cook. The list goes on of a bunch of noteworthy players who should play in big games, but it just hasn't shown for Kirk Cousins. But I feel like what does help them is that Daniel Jones is on the other sideline, and outside of I don't know who on this Giants roster has played a playoff game outside of Sterling Shepard, who's injured.
That's a good question.
I don't know
Yeah,
who.
I can't think of anybody off. Oh, Adoree. Adoree play with
Maybe. Oh yeah, with the
in
Titans. So yeah,
Tennessee.
I mean I don't know. Is he playing?
Yeah, I saw that he's trending towards getting back to practice. So I think that they're
That could help
hopefully
at
trying
least
to
them
get back.
out.
Yeah, especially when you consider that they have Jefferson on the other side against them. But honestly, I mean, out of all this is the thing. Out of all the games, I think this is the obvious one where people are going to be like upset, upset. I like the Giants this week.
They
I
picked
like
the
the Giants.
upset.
My upset of the week is the Giants. Yeah, no doubt because it is Kirk Cousins leading his team into a primetime 4:30 game where there's no other games on. There's no red zone to flip to. Every single thing that
We
is going
have
to
to
happen in this
watch this.
game
We have no
going to
choice.
watch. Yeah. No, every snap is going to be watched by everybody that has the game on. Like, there's nowhere else for you to turn to that day. So I just think that it's a good matchup because the Giants struggle with passing the ball, but the Viking secondary
They
is
can't stop the
paper thin.
pass.
Yeah, paper thin, and I don't like them against pretty much any team except maybe the Giants because the Giants have like three pass catchers I can name, and I've watched the entire 18 weeks of the NFL season. So like it's like a great matchup on that side, and then the Vikings
Well,
they
do you
have
remember how
great
many
skill
yards
positions.
Daniel Jones had in their last meeting? He had
Passing,
over 300 yards
yeah,
passing.
and the Giants had so many drops in that game too. Like that was the crazy part. They had guys on 1st and 10 with corners playing 5 yards off. Open catch. Yeah. I just don't have interest in catching this one right now. Man, try me again next drive. Something. Like I don't know what goes on with those Giants receivers other than just, kind of lack of talent. But and then when you look at a flip side, the Vikings we know what the offense is. We know that they're potent. You watch Cousins on the right day and
He
you're like,
forced
holy
James
crap,
Jefferson.
it's a top 5 quarterback. You watch Jefferson, you don't even need to watch Jefferson. Even on a bad day, you're still like, dude, I don't even know what's happened. I can't even explain that. That guy's uncoverable. And they got Hawkinson that they got midseason. However, I think when you get Cousins flustered in the pocket, that's when you start getting some of the bad games. And I like the Giants defensive line, whether it's Dexter Lawrence, whether it's Thibodeau. They're trying to get what's his name? It's Leonard Williams. I
Yeah,
know he's
Leonard
been out. He's
Williams.
had a neck problem, so we'll see if they can get him up and active for the game.
Oh,
Same with
and
Adoree
remember,
Jackson.
Kayvon Thibodeau probably had the quote of the year when it comes to primetime games. I don't like primetime. Primetime likes me. That was to me
But
like
I
one of the best
love
picks. I
Thibodeau.
love
I
that.
love Thibodeau, and I think he has a realistic shot of being an absolute game wrecker in that one.
Yeah.
So
The only
I
thing about him I question is his character. I think his character is like
eh,
he's hot headed because of
eh,
the way he reacted to the whole Colts thing. But hey, this could be a breakout game for a couple of these stars on the Giants. Well, rising stars. To me, the way the Giants win this game, you need to play keep away from the Vikings, and Saquon has to have over 100 yards rushing. Like Saquon needs to be at least a decoy in every play, or he has to have over 26 touches in order for you to be in this game. That's the only way I see it. Because at least with the Vikings, they have playoff experience. There's a lot of playoff experience on that roster. With the Giants, like outside of Adoree Jackson, who might play, and Sterling Shepard, who can't play, I don't know. Saquon, this is his first playoff game. Daniel Jones, bro, just knowing with some of the quarterbacks that might be out there available, you need to step it up. So it's definitely something to watch. But
nah, he's safe. He's safe. He's done enough this year.
yeah,
Unfortunately,
but
he's
we
done
do
enough.
have to make these up real quick because we do have to talk about head coaching vacancies. We have Bengals, Ravens, and then Cowboys, Buccaneers. So I would say Ravens, Bengals. If Lamar plays, I really love this game, but if he doesn't play, I feel like the Bengals should mop
Yeah,
the floor with
Bengals all
them.
day. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
And
mean
then,
the Ravens tried to. They started Brown yesterday, and it looked like it might be just so that they didn't have to show the Bengals what they would try to do if Huntley starts. Maybe that's the
yeah,
best thing I
maybe.
can come up with is because starting Brown out of nowhere was
Yeah,
kind of weird.
it was bad. And then we have Buccaneers, Cowboys, and I think we talked enough about them, but
I mean,
that
that's my upset of the week. I'm going Bucks all day, all
Bucks
day,
all day. We're hitting the
all
money
day.
line. Anyone money line points? My best bet, don't go for points because this game could go either way. I could see the Bucks winning by 1 or maybe winning by 4 on like a missed field goal.
Well, I mean, they are plus 2.5, so maybe the
Yeah,
points is the way to go. But yeah, I do like them just to win the game straight up. But yeah, let's move on. We still have another episode this
coaching
week to discuss.
vacancies. So yesterday, Lovie Smith lost his job. I'm not a fan of celebrating people getting fired because Lovie Smith lost his job. The Browns defense coordinator lost his job, and it is quote unquote Black Monday. And only one head coach was announced firing, and someone here was he waited so long for this day that he texted me like the tweet as soon as it happened, and I was just like, okay, I already know this look on his face right now. Cliff Kingsbury was officially fired from the Cardinals, and guys, you do not know. I could tell you this: Myles' reaction was just laughing once he
I
saw the
mean,
tweet.
because this is something me and you have talked about for a while, which we just think that like
He's not a good coach, but man, I do not have the beef with him like you do.
I mean, I just wish that in my line of profession I could fail with a generational quarterback talent and then fail at that job at a mid university where I could have probably just gone 500 and been considered a success. But unfortunately, I had a generational talent, couldn't go 500, got fired, then became the offensive coordinator at one of the most renowned colleges in the world, USC. Had that job for a week, and then next thing that happens is my 1 week as offensive coordinator at USC and my 4 years of under 500 football at Texas Tech just so happened to land me the Arizona Cardinals job, who just so happened to have the number one overall pick in Kyler Murray. I mean, I want that to happen in my life. I'm more jealous than anything. Like, I wish I could fail my way to the top like that because that's mainly my beef. It's just like, all right, the guy that had Patrick Mahomes and couldn't win with him just gets the number one overall pick and then has one playoff appearance, gets absolutely embarrassed in the playoffs. They sign the quarterback.
Hey,
That's
Call of
embarrassing.
Duty Double XP was out that weekend.
They sign the quarterback. That becomes embarrassing. They give him an extension, and 8 months later he's fired. So not to worry. Even though you were terrible for majority of your coaching tenure, you still get paid through 2027. Like, I'm honestly more jealous of the guy than anything. Like, I honestly think his offense is all right. Like, I see how it works. I was telling you right before we got on, I thought he used mediocre James Conner as an effective running back. So I think he obviously does stuff. It's just like he just doesn't do it at a clip successful enough to win football games.
Yeah, I actually would like to see probably Cliff Kingsbury run like maybe the Jets offense. I feel like that could help him out way more because
I mean, I think
that's
the best fit would be him going to the Patriots.
yeah. I mean, because the Patriots offense is terrible. Man,
terrible, and I think they have good running backs. They have I mean, I don't
the
think
only
they're
thing is
great
just
at
the
pass blocking, but
receiver.
I think they're good at run blocking. So I think that could be a good match. It's Belichick, who once upon a time drafted Cliff
Did him.
Kingsbury. So that would honestly be my best case scenario for Cliff, is for him to land somewhere. But I think if he's going to take an offensive coordinator job, it would have to be for a team. Ooh, you know who could be sneaky for them is Pittsburgh. Like I was going to say, it would have to be with an organization that already has a coach that is well regarded within the organization. It doesn't have really
Yeah.
his job on the line, because I think it would be a storyline if the offense looked good
Maybe
but the
New
team was
Orleans,
underperforming. That's the only
considering.
thing. It's just, I think it will be such a storyline if the offense is performing well and the team isn't, about will
Yeah,
Cliff be the next coach.
that could be. But there is that. But we do have some other coaching vacancies that we had in question. I mean, right now the Colts, we don't know if they're going to bring back Jeff Saturday. They haven't said anything yet
I mean,
or
there's
posted
no way.
anything yet.
There's no way.
And then the Rams, apparently Sean McVay, the decision is in limbo right now. There's a very good chance he might not come back after how this year ended and kind of the Rams stock is after this season, because they don't have their first round pick.
This year or next year.
Yeah, so he knows in terms of depth, his team is going to be bad.
Yeah.
And then Aaron Donald might consider retirement
I
for
mean, he
what we
did
know.
this last offseason.
Yeah, so it could be there, and then you don't know what you'll be left with. So there's definitely that. And another coaching vacancy, Robert Saleh for the Jets. I mean, not that I don't think he's a good coach. I just feel like he got very lucky with the 49ers. I've been preaching this. I felt that was more team than scheme. I didn't feel like his scheme was that good. And then if you look at the Jets defense now, how many first round picks are on that defense for the Jets? Like, you have to be good with that many first round picks on your defense. You just have to be good to a certain point. That's just how I feel on him. And then making bad decisions on quarterback, that's there too, and handling it is definitely something I wouldn't like. But I could see the Jets bringing him back just because I feel like the locker room does fight for him. So it definitely could be there. Another coaching vacancy. Oh, man.
Denver.
Yeah, Denver with Sean
Denver's the one.
Payton. But also,
Denver's
I
the one. I
mean,
think that's the one that
the
really
Texans,
sets
I don't
the
know who would
mark.
want to take that Texans job.
Oh, I mean, the Texans, I think it's the easiest thing in the world. They're going to hire Josh McCown. Like, they were going to hire him last year, and they got blowback. And I think the Colts hiring Jeff Saturday gives organizations now the slate to hire whoever they want, regardless of experience. Like,
Dan
that single
Orlovsky,
move,
Nets head coach of the Colts.
I literally think that any person is not off the table at this point after that move was made by the Colts. And there was real talk about Josh McCown possibly being the Texans head coach last year with no coaching experience. And
Yeah.
I don't see how anything has changed. If that was who they were targeting last year, and now that they're going to have the number 2 overall pick and probably their pick at who they want at quarterback, why wouldn't they just go back to that same well?
Yep. I mean, it's definitely
But that's got
something
to be the worst. That's got to be the worst opening. I mean,
job.
outside, they have 3 assets to build around. They have the number 2 overall pick. They have Stingley, and they have Dameon Pierce.
And running back lifespan in the NFL is not the best, so it's
So
definitely
I mean, the thing that for me would make the most sense, but they're just terribly run, and I've already seen reports that he has no interest in the job, would be D'Amico Ryans, the guy who was a second-round pick for your organization, won Defensive Player of the Year. But you know how badly run you have to be for that guy to be like, I have no interest in returning. Yeah. Why would he? I honestly, it's probably a better job being defensive coordinator for the 49ers than the head coach of the Texans.
Yeah, you don't actually have to worry about the whole team. You just have to worry about the defense at that point. And then you're like, okay, I got Nick Bosa, and I'm good. So there is that. But
and Fred
guys,
Warner?
we do want to, and Fred Warner. That's right, another All-Pro. So guys, we do have to cut it short today, even though this is a time of regular show. But we will be back on Friday. We're gonna have a guest on Friday's show, and we're going to talk playoff football with them. We're going to dive deeper into the matchups that we're going to really look into this weekend. We might probably touch on maybe 4 games out of the whole wild card weekend, but we're going to try to give you a very in-depth analysis. And we're even going to try to make some jokes because there's going to be more news coming out. And just in case if any stuff does happen, we will be there. And also, tonight is the college football playoff. We are going to be releasing a video in like 10 minutes about how we feel about a certain player on one team. We'll name who, but the guy is overrated as heck. So yeah, we are excited and we can't wait to see you guys on Friday.
Peace.